Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Good morning, Bill.
Oh, the show we got this morning, Peter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, episode number 147. Suspects can be cruel.
Oh, no. Not if you're nice to them, no.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, jeez.
Huh? The most important and most little unknown secret with real estate investors is knowing whether or not your seller is motivated.
Oh, yeah, I'm really motivated. I want to get all my money. I'm really motivated. Please buy my house and give me too much money. Thank you. Give me.
Or not.
Oh. Oh.
In other words, the only time you should go look at property, evaluate repairs, comp it, and spend more than 5 minutes on it. 5 minutes, Peter.
Yeah, right.
5 minutes.
Right.
Is when the seller has proven and earned your time and experience to help them. It's the only time.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of our listeners right now are like, what? They're evaluating houses. They're going out looking at MLS houses. They're getting contract. Oh, my God.
They're like shopping at Home Depot.
Right. And if the seller can't do this, well, you whack them.
Bang.
Just like Mr. Ron LeGrand says. And if you don't, you're the fool working for nothing. You're the fool working for nothing but acceptance from your seller. You're working for nothing but acceptance for your seller.
Yeah, but that's on his terms.
Yeah. The biggest and most common mistake almost every real estate investor makes in dealing with fake sellers or non-motivated time vampires, dream-stealing suspects. And I can go on with a bunch of adjectives
I was expecting
for that.
Life-sucking, heartbreaking.
I left those out. I usually write those, but I left those out. Yeah. So in this podcast, we're going to reveal why the jury is no longer out on the common belief that every real estate seller is for us. And the dead giveaways, which all top-notch investors know, so they do lots of deals and never burn out. So let's dig into some of the fastest known ways to deal with these blood-sucking critters. How's that, Peter?
Hey, Bill, don't hold back.
I was thinking I was.
Just say what you really mean.
Because I know I've written a few emails on it, and I was like, once I wrote the emails on it to my email group, my herd.
Then you read it again.
No. Yeah, I got a few. Who pissed in your Cheerios? Or somebody must have pissed Bill off today. Or so those are the responses I get.
What happened yesterday?
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Ouch.
So first thing we need to do is cover the two most unknown secrets in real estate. Okay? But first of all, you know me, I just got to explain a few things before I do that, right? If you're an investor in this arena and around guys like you and I, okay, go to meetings and stuff like that, you may think that you've heard this before. And you're like, nah, I already know about that. Just don't make the mistake that what we're going to go over today, that you actually think you know it and you dismiss it. Because I'm telling you the only reason, what reason, Peter?
The only reason
why you don't have everything that you have in real estate, why you don't have the amount of money, the amount of properties, the amount of leads, the amount of everything that you can dream of, the size of business you want, everything is because of suspects. That's the only reason why. You are talking to the wrong people, and they are sucking the blood out of you like a vampire. As Dan Kennedy puts it, a time vampire, which we're going to talk about later.
Bill, should we check ourselves in the mirror to see how pale we are?
Yeah, exactly. problem with these critters is they're really, really clever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're really good at pouring their emotions into their story and making you believe that what they're going through, you should feel sorry for them. And you do. And you fall into these little landmine traps and you don't even know you're in there until one day you wake up and you're like, oh, shit, I got to pay my bills. Where's all the money? Oh, my God, I've been working on that deal for the last 3 weeks and it didn't pay me.
Mm-hmm.
How many times does that happen? It still happens to me.
But I'm getting this terrible picture of a spider's web with a black tarantula in the middle.
I just was working on a deal with a friend of mine, with Steve. I had a guy that had, remember the office building I was trying to rent? And the guy had a piece of property down on the shoreline, and it had 2 houses on it, 2 smaller houses. One was like, they were small houses. One was like 1,000 square feet. The other one was like 600 or 700 square feet. This guy tied me up. I mean, I met my buddy out there. I did some town, city hall work.
Wow.
I mean, I got wrapped up with this guy for about 30 hours.
Serious? 30?
30 hours. Probably 25 or 30
Jesus.
hours when I got all done. I met him out at the office building. I mean, all kinds of stuff. And at the very end, zap, he got me. So it happens, right? That's why they're cruel. So there are very, 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 very few people that study real estate the way we do. Okay?
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah. So not everyone knows what we know, or even what our listeners know. When I say us, I'm talking about the listeners as well, because there's a lot of listeners that study a lot of real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not everyone knows what we know, especially your sellers and buyers. And so many times I hear my coaching clients out talking to a seller or a buyer, usually a seller, and giving them the seminar.
Yeah.
They go to the weekend seminar, they listen to my podcast, or they read a book, or they do whatever, right? And they're out there giving them the seminar.
Well, they're trying to teach them how the thing works, so the person will just go into agreement with it. Say, okay, I'll do that, rather than talking to them and listening to them, finding out the story, seeing what the situation is, and finding a way to make a deal with that one specific individual.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
I got to get this straight.
I got to get that wrong?
I got to get this straight.
What?
So you're saying if I break my leg and I go to the doctor, he shouldn't explain to me how he's going to fix my leg? He should just fix my leg?
No, when you go to the dentist, you just lean your head back, close your eyes, and wait.
Oh, we don't have to know what he's doing? He just does it?
Nope. What he says is, when we're done, that won't hurt anymore.
Right.
You go, okay, good.
Yeah. Or when we're done, you're going to have to wear a cast for 6 weeks and you'll have to heal. Mm-hmm. Right? That's it.
But then you'll be okay in 6 weeks. Because all you want to know is, I'll be okay when and how.
Exactly.
That's it. How you do it, don't bother me, the details. I'm already annoyed too much
So
with
you
the
don't
problem.
get a seminar?
Nope. And I'm a teacher, so I have to be really careful with that.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like you give lectures.
Yeah.
You do meetups. You do all that stuff. But that's because you have done the individual meetings first and learned how to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So careful.
So if you qualify for bank loans and have money for big deposits, and maybe you're too scared to do creative deals, then just shut this podcast off, because it's not for you. We're not talking about buying MLS properties and getting private lenders and hard lenders, and we're not talking about all that. But if you can't qualify for a loan, right, a bank loan, and you don't have or want to risk your own capital, and you want to learn creative real estate, this is in that realm. This is not the type of real estate or the type of podcast where we're going to talk about how you can take somebody with a beautiful house and a beautiful neighborhood that has no reason to do anything except just sell it and get paid.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about that house. And that's a big factor, because so many people think that every deal, especially when they do my deal structuring, I show them that every deal is a deal. But what they miss is mathematically every deal is a deal. The motivation of the seller and what they're willing to do and what their outcome is expected to be in their own mind is what you need to pay attention to.
Yep.
Right?
There's no reason they should sell it if they don't have your offer as something that would work for them.
Right.
Why would they bother?
Well, if you have somebody like right now, my sister's selling a house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She just spent $28,000 on her kitchen
Oops.
and a 1,800 square foot ranch.
Mm.
I mean, this was not some big, 4,000 square foot house that she spent.
No, we'll spend that on a whole renovation.
Yeah, this is not. I mean, they went all the way. I mean, they bought the best cabinets, best appliances, best counters, glass in the doors. I mean, it's magazine perfect.
But isn't that the scenario when you look on Zillow? It says if you spend $25,000 on a kitchen, you'll get $10,000 back when you sell it.
Yeah,
isn't it like that?
Yeah, pretty much.
So you overspend and then you're not getting it back.
Right.
So you can do that for yourself if it's your house. It's fine.
My point is that she just bought a condo in Florida and is looking to go to Florida and is now looking to sell her house, right? And she has, they comp it for $300. She wants $325, and I told her the other day, you should sell it for $325, and you should use the realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's a stunning house with a beautiful yard in a damn good neighborhood. It's like one of the best neighborhoods in her city.
Yep.
And the city's not. I mean, she lives in Cheshire, Connecticut, which is, I don't think there's a bad neighborhood in Cheshire, Connecticut.
Nah, Cheshire's one of those nice suburban, middle class, off the beaten path.
Up class, yeah. It's upper middle class.
No big city, no urban city nearby necessarily.
Doctors and lawyers and very professional people live there, and there's a lot of $400,000 or $500,000 houses.
Yep.
So my point is that she's in a pretty neighborhood with a pretty house that works.
Mm-hmm.
She could just put it on the market, and she could dazzle the buyer, and she could dazzle the banker to give the buyer the money, and she can dazzle everybody because there's nothing to apologize for.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing to apologize for.
Yep.
And her situation is she owns the properties correctly, so she can afford to pay both of them. She's owned them for several months.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not looking to move right away. She's looking to move in a couple months because she's moving to Florida.
Yeah.
And she's got to clean the house out. So, it's a convenience thing for her.
Yeah, she's not like in trouble. She has to sell right away or else. So
she can squat and wait for the money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now that's a perfect example of a suspect for us.
Mm-hmm.
She'll sell that house and do fine.
Sure.
Right? Okay, so it's a whole nother story, finding and tracking motivated sellers. And it's a lot more of a skill. So somebody like my sister's house that we're talking about right now is that's a great deal for somebody that wants to live in a house because it's a beautiful house. They pay all the money, they pay their mortgage payment, they don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's brand new. Kitchens and he's a plumber. Bathrooms are all brand new. Toilets are brand new. Furnace is new. Everything's new. You don't do nothing. You just move in and pay.
There's no angle for an investor.
Right.
There's not a piece of the puzzle missing.
So I don't think angle is the right word.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no upside for the investor. There's no reason for an investor to be in that deal because there's no that added value for the investor.
There's nothing he can put into it. There's nothing he could fix and make a profit or change anything to move it up.
Right. So what you're looking for is people that need added value and that are not willing to wait for a bigger payout.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, some people, we pay 10 or 15% more than the market value because they give us terms. My saying is that I'll pay whatever you ask for your house if you let me choose the terms.
Yep.
Right? And that's just how it works. So I wanted to talk about what suspects do. Why are they cruel? Before we go into the two secrets that I want to tell you.
Okay.
So you have an example of a suspect being cruel to you?
Sure. You call the guy up. This is a condo I called. It's a condo in town. So, I mean, what's it worth? 150, 200 if it's amazing. 100 and a quarter. It's a condo. So I asked him, so how much you want for it? He goes, $300,000. I said, what? He said, $300,000. Where'd you get that? He says, that's what I want.
Right.
Okay, so how'd you come up with that? That's what I want. It's like, it was kind of like that attitude. That's what I want. And he's just like, and I can get it too. So that's what I want. You want to pay that? I said, goodbye. But it was just the attitude.
Right.
Like, where'd you get that number? I mean, the price of a house is not determined by the seller. It's determined by the market.
Right.
Anyways, he didn't care. He was just, I don't know, just being mean.
How about that guy that we were dealing with in
Newington guy?
In Newington,
yeah.
And the house was worth $270. We offered him $325.
Yeah.
On payments. Because it was free and clear.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually thought that we were going to give him $325 and then give him the other and finance the other $25,000 because he was asking $350.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
But the worst part is when I talked to him, he would give me some information like, oh, I owe a lot of money on the house. And then you ask more, well, no, we got it in an inheritance and my sister owns some of it. And then, no, I own the house, but I should give her some money. Like, well, what the hell is your story, buddy? Right. So when the story changes, you know you got to...
and when we investigated it, we found out what it was and we called him on it. He's like, I never said that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's get down to business. The fastest way to know how to evaluate deals is this way. And this is never, I mean, I've been really working on this because with my coaching clients, it's like they miss this part. And when they miss this part, they go astray. It's amazing how far off they go. So one, you need to know if you have to buy with all cash right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can buy with terms. Or, if you don't understand what terms is, you can take over the debt or make payments until you can pay it off.
Mm-hmm.
That's terms.
Right.
Right. So we're going to talk about both, but basically, if you're paying all cash now, then you need to have a deep discount. Mm-hmm. And we have formulas with that. We've talked about all them. We've talked about the maximum allowable offer formula.
Yep.
Which is the after renovated value times 70% minus repairs minus your wholesale money.
Mm-hmm.
It usually runs about 50% of the market value.
Right.
So you have to have a deep discount if you're paying cash.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not paying cash, you can overpay, but you're only overpaying if the property allows you to pay it off in time.
Right.
So you can overpay for a property because you have enough time. So instead of doing a 2-year deal, you might say you're going to pay $200,000 for a property, and you decide, and you could do it in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you decide to pay $225,000 for the property, but now you need 5 years.
That's right.
Right? And the reason why you do that is because your renter is going to pay you money, or your buyer is going to rent from you and get usage of the property and not any principal reduction, right? And it's going to give you an opportunity to pay down some of that overpayment to get the house back into an equity position.
Right.
Okay? So, time versus money is really the you want to just go look up on Google time versus money, and there's a whole bunch of articles on that, but that's what it is.
Yeah. And I see you do that at home. The guy goes, I can do $200,000. The guy says, I only want to do a 2-year lease. Well, then I can pay $200,000, but I want $225,000. Well, then it has to be 5 years.
Right.
So here's a basic rule I learned from you. Anytime the seller asks for more, you ask for more. Right. You don't just keep giving stuff away because it's to your detriment unless you get something in return. More time to pay.
Well, I give them more choices is what I do. So it's like, okay, so if you want to, I give them a price for $225,000 for 5 years, and they're like, no, I want $200,000 now. Well, if you want money now, then here's the real number.
Yep.
So you pick which one you want.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and then they have to fit it into their plan, which we're going to talk about, but how to fit it into their plan.
Right, but all that fits our end.
Right.
We never go, okay, I'll do what you want. You can't, because we know what'll work for us. Plan A might work, Plan B might work, Plan C might work.
Right.
But if they don't like any of those, then we can't do it because it won't work for us, so we walk away. But if one of those works for us and him,
that's exactly what I talk about, a seller being willing to do something. They have to be enthusiastic about it. They have to feel like they're getting a deal. They have to feel like they're getting what they want. Because when you go to a closing table, there's only one thing that gets people to a closing table, That's greed. They're going there to get what they want. Maybe it's debt relief. Maybe it's a big fat check. Maybe it's, pride that they can tell all their buddies how they sold the house for $25,000 more than anybody else will pay. There's a reason for them to come to the closing table. That is the motivation we're talking about.
Yep.
So what do you think the definition of motivation is? We should probably look that up.
Well, I think it has something to do with motion.
Yeah. Can you go grab me a dictionary, please?
Motivate. Haven't looked that one up lately.
Yeah.
When I look up words, I like to see what the derivation is because it tells me what's behind the word, not just what it means, but what's behind it even.
Right.
So
to me, motivation is just as simple as there's some feeling or emotion that's prompting the person to want to do this. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be rational. Doesn't have to be logical. Doesn't have to be any of that stuff. It's just a feeling. Yeah.
Isn't it more emotional usually than practical?
It's always emotional. See, here's the thing, and that's very important that you say that. So motivated, to me, usually means that the person's emotions are stronger than the math.
Yeah, strong, or the logic.
The logic.
Yeah, people say use your, head and heart, right?
So
use your head, not your heart.
So that's what I do, is I deal with the emotions first, and then I justify it with the math, which is the logic.
Yeah.
And I show them how it's okay and how they're making money or how it's fitting into their emotion.
Yeah, because both have to work, don't they? Ultimately?
Yeah, but not always. I mean, sometimes the emotion, especially somebody that's just sick and tired. Look at the guy that we're buying a house from right now. Right? He was married 49 years. 2 months later, he's divorced. It was just a landslide. It just came one day.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah.
The old man?
Yeah.
Really?
No, not him.
Oh.
No. I'm talking about a different house.
Oh, okay.
I forgot the name of the street.
Now, the other guy has a son in trouble, so I thought he had two problems. Oh, boy.
Yeah. So he was married. This guy that I'm dealing with was married for 49 years, and then she said she found her soulmate. In 2 months, she was gone. She was out of the house, gone, and looking to get remarried after 49 years.
Ouch.
So
now good luck on the soulmate working out.
Yeah. So this guy, and by the way, it was his fourth marriage.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't see that. So the word motive. The word motive means some inner drive, impulse, intention, etc., that causes a person to do something or act in a certain way.
Yep.
Right? Incentive, goal. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, the derivation of motive is to move.
Oh, it is? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I guess good.
Right.
Like motion, maybe motive, motion makes it move. What's making the person move on this house, this idea?
Right. So it's exactly right. It's some inner drive, impulse, intention, etc., that causes a person to do something or act in a certain way. Incentive and goal.
I learned a philosophical point that before you put out an effort, before you go do something, you have to have some emotion behind it. Like, why do you get up to cook your meal? You're hungry.
Right.
Your stomach hurts. You have to cook.
Right.
Wake up in the middle of the night. Oh, I got to go to the bathroom. I don't want to go. Oh, it hurts too much. Oh, I got to go.
Right.
But, why are you selling the house? Well, this happened, that happened. There's some emotional thing making somebody do something. You don't do something for no reason. Right.
So when we talk about the suspect, we're talking about not having that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it just money with a suspect?
No. So let's talk about that. So I wanted to dig into these two secrets that I've been talking about, which I just gave to you. One is, and they're not secrets, but they're so in such plain sight that people don't take them as important, and they become secrets. Mm-hmm. They're like unknown secrets because people don't look at them. So the two secrets
you don't find that out either unless you ask.
Right.
It's not sitting there.
So the biggest, if you're not buying enough houses, or if you're making offers and you don't know what's going on, the biggest thing that you're running into is you're not clarifying, do they want cash now or will they take cash later?
Mm-hmm.
Do they want all their money up front?
Mm.
Or are they willing to give me a discount? Or are they like my sister? They want all their money now, and they can do that because there's not any added value for you to bring to the table.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, every angle of the house. I mean, the house is beautiful. The house is renovated. They don't need the money. I mean, they do want to sell the house and move, but whether they move next month or they move next year, it doesn't make a difference to them.
They don't have a reason to give up tons of time or money.
Yeah. I mean, she works for an out-of-state company, so it doesn't matter if she's in that living room or another living room. It doesn't matter if she's on a beach. As long as she's got Wi-Fi, then she can work. Right? So the number one thing that you have to look for is, does the seller need cash ASAP?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So to me, this is like driving a NASCAR race. Okay, I used to drive a race car. So this is like driving a NASCAR race and seeing the big yellow caution flag. Right? And you know something's going on, but you can't always see it. In fact, I have a 5-second exercise I do with these sellers, because if a red flag is going to be thrown up on our race, that means the race stops.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know it sooner than later. Right?
Oh, sure.
I don't want to burn up my available resources.
Sure.
Right? But before I tell you the 5-second sequence, I need to explain a few things. Okay, so number one, a suspect is very often a suspect because they have plan B. And they are just checking your offer out to make sure they didn't miss a better plan than what they are already thinking.
Yeah, love that. So they're really not there for our benefit.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So let me read that again, because that's killer.
Yeah, go ahead, do that.
Right. A suspect is very often a suspect because they have a plan B. And they are just checking our offer or your offer out to see to make sure they didn't miss anything, and that they, something that they weren't thinking of, that there might be more benefit to them.
It's funny. You always say, what does the seller want? An offer.
Right.
But the way you're explaining it now is they want an offer, but they want to see what other offers are out there. So they'll pretend like they're interested in your offer, like they're fishing. Right. They'll lure you in. They'll just throw the bait and just see what they can squeeze out of you until they're done, and then nope, bye-bye.
Right. Which is why
fishing ended.
Right. Which is why when I talk about in earlier podcast, why you make sure you do not give the offer until all of your data is received. Like the prospect suspect form is completely filled out. You get everything you want from them, because as soon as you make their offer, that's exactly right. They cut you loose.
Yep.
If they don't like it, they'll be very nice and cordial, passive aggressive, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I really appreciate talking to you. That's very interesting. I'll let you know." And they ghost you. They're gone. Okay. So number two, they've not been on the market or in the market with the property and have false expectations of what the house is really worth or what's going to happen.
You're saying the property hasn't been on the market very long yet?
The property hasn't been on the market.
Oh, it's not on yet?
Or it hasn't been to the market. They haven't experienced bringing the house to the market. And bringing the house to the market means getting, if it's a hot deal, then people come out of the woodwork to buy that house.
Yep.
If it's like my sister's house, if the house is not worth $325, she won't get anybody looking at it. It'll just lay dormant, right? It has a specific name. It's called silent disagreement. That's what it's called.
So the market is silently disagreeing with the seller?
So if I have a house that's worth $200,000 and I have it on the market for $230,000, it's silent disagreement that people are like my house in Plainville was that way.
Yeah.
And that's where I learned this about 2 months ago, because I was in the cigar shop and there's a dude in there that's kind of a little bit of a weird dude. He's a good guy, but he's a little strange, right? And he slipped one night. He had been drinking, and he slipped one night because he told me that they had actually looked at my house in Plainville, right? Because I think I was asking $289,900 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that the basement wasn't finished, which was not correct, the way that, and which made me go look at the pictures the way the realtor had just put new pictures on there, and she put pictures on there, and it made, there was a room off the garage that wasn't part of the house. It was just like an add-on.
Yeah.
But
That's like under the deck or something.
yeah, but the whole rest of the basement was finished. And the first thing he says, well, the basement wasn't finished. And the second thing he said is, well, it's too much money. Which, if you looked at the house in the neighborhood, they were running 1,700 square feet.
Yeah.
They were 250.
Mm-hmm.
I was asking 290 because I had 2,600 square feet. So
Sure.
they weren't doing apples to apples, but people don't do that when they're looking. They don't think like that, right? So basically, they had been to the house, they had looked at the house, and they were silently disagreeing by not communicating to
Right.
me.
Yeah, well, silence is deafening.
Right. So when you have a house that isn't selling, there's only two reasons why it doesn't sell. Either you're asking too much money or it's dysfunctional. Dysfunctional means that, you got to walk through the kitchen to get, to get to, walk through a bathroom to get to the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the floor plan is not correct.
Right.
It's dysfunctional.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So there's the only two reasons why you don't sell a house.
Yeah, that's like actually one of my music students lives right next door to the house we saw in Newington a couple of years back. With the old man kept going back and forth. I mean, you and Naomi came up to look at it.
Right.
I thought I had a terms deal. He says, I never said that. We went to the basement. It stunk really bad from pets. And the guy goes, my nose doesn't work. I can't smell. Well, it smells really bad.
Right.
But she lives right next door and told me a little story about it. But that was dysfunctional, the way the floor plan was.
Right.
That came back to haunt me last night. Oh, I live right next door. Yeah, that's nice.
Right. So let's go over this again. So number one, a suspect is very often a suspect because they have plan B and they are just checking your offer out so they don't miss a better plan than what they were thinking, or they have not been to the market yet with the property and have false expectations of what the house is really worth or what it's going to do.
Sure.
And then the third one is they have already did some calculations in their head on what they are going to make when they sell the property, right?
Yeah.
And they've already spent that money in their head.
Of course. Why wouldn't you?
Right? And now they're unwilling to do the real numbers so that they can sell because they're not going to get blah. Like, I'm going to sell my house and pay my daughter's college off, or I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to buy a new car.
Get the deluxe motorhome.
Right. Now, with this said, you have to understand that this is one of my 5-second exercises. There's multiple of them, but one of them is, what are you going to do with the money when you sell the house? And what that does, that's actually an encoded, meaning that it's not a direct question. It's kind of wrapped around so it sounds nice. Question.
Yeah.
It's an encoded question.
What are you going to do when you sell the house?
No, what are you going to do with the money
when you sell the house?
That's
right, the money.
So you can ask, so how much? So first question is, how much were you planning on getting at the closing? $20,000. You know that's not a right number. You don't try to defend it at all. You just let them freely speak. Oh, good. What were you expecting to do with the $20,000?
Right.
And that number, or that answer to that number, is where your problem is. They're looking to solve that problem.
Right.
Because every house that has equity in it, the person that's sitting on it thinks the equity is no different than a savings account. Especially your free and clear people. they think that it's a savings account. So they could just automatically just go down to the corner, get a realtor, and pull their check out.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, even realtors don't understand the cost to sell a property, which is 12 to 15%, which we talked about in an earlier podcast.
Yep.
So now here you are in a house, right? And one of these three things is going to happen. If they are subtle suspects, but they're suspects. One is, like I said, they're going to, they already have plan B.
Is there a way to ask them politely, like, so how do you plan on selling your house, or something to find out what their plan is?
Yeah. When I make an offer and they go poo, poo, poo.
Oh, that's when you go, so what are you going to do if I don't buy it?
Yeah. So what do you plan on doing if I don't buy your house today?
Yeah. Then you find out later. You know what's important that you just told me? I'm too honest and straight in my communication. Somebody says, I want $20,000. If I think they're not getting $20,000, I try to talk about it then instead of shut up, listen, and just keep going and bring it up later.
Right.
That's important. You have to get the whole story finished before you start pulling the wheels off the wagon.
So let's talk about raising kids.
Okay.
So my daughter comes to me and says, Dad, I got drunk last night.
What?
And
You got
she's
drunk?
15.
What?
And she's 15.
Okay, good.
Okay. So what does a parent do?
Yeah. Well, usually.
Most are reactive instead of proactive.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, oh, okay. Do you feel better? I mean, how do you feel? Are you okay? Are you able to go to school today? You know, I would make sure I take care of the immediate environment, make sure they're okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it immediately tells me that something went wrong. So I would, at a later point, bring it up to the child and say, okay, so why? So, because right now they're hungover and they're like, they feel like crap, and that's not a time to talk to them.
No.
Right?
No, absolutely.
I mean, some things you have to address right away. I'm not telling you that this is for everything, but some things you're better off to. And then later on, the next day or so, when they're like feeling better, you say, okay, so why did you get drunk?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? What's bothering you? Right? Or what happened?
Right.
It's the same type of a thing when you're negotiating. Because if you don't have all the facts, and I think we're going to do a podcast on this, like things to negotiate with, because my coaching clients are like complaining about this. But one of the things that you need to have when you're negotiating is enough data.
Yeah.
You need to do your research.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means talking to the seller to find out what is motivating them. I just read the definition of motivate, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's prompting them to do this?
Yeah, so what I'm getting is don't jump in at the first response and try to handle that. Just get the whole story. Shut up, listen. Right. You don't have to correct things all the time. You can correct it later.
Right.
Okay.
So suppose I'm selling a car, right?
Yeah.
And the car is $5,000. And somebody comes and looks at the car and they say, oh, I want that car, but I don't have the $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what would you think?
Well, I would think, how can I get the guy the car and get the money somehow? Do something.
Exactly.
He wants it, so try to do something.
Exactly.
Not going to say, oh, get away from me.
Exactly.
Unless there's a line of people.
Right. Totally wrong. And I'm not making you wrong. I'm just saying it's totally, because that's what most people would think, is that you would believe him that he doesn't have the money.
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is that if he was really motivated, he would find the money.
Mm-hmm.
He would go look for it. He would say to you, I really like this car. I only have $3,800. I need to find $1,200. I'm going to go ask some people. I'll be back later.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, he can say, I want it, but I don't have the money, so you start cutting back on your price, and that'd be the wrong thing to do.
The point that I'm trying to make is that if you were doing this in a house and he said, I don't have the money, what would you work on? What problem would you work on?
Well, here's something I have learned. If you work on the problem, you're missing the point. You should work on the real issue.
Right.
Like he says, I don't have the money. Okay, well, if you have the information, you know he's trying to get that $20,000 to pay the student's college loan off, and you still try to get that done somehow, right?
Right. So it's the difference between the disease and the symptom. So
Right.
not having the money as a symptom, why don't they have the money?
Yeah.
Right. So like in my case with the car, you say to the guy, okay, so you don't have the $5,000.
Mm.
Okay. And then they just go away and you think, oh, well, I think I got a buyer because he says, I'm going to go do blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you ask him, how come you don't have the money? Then next thing you know, you find out, oh, he doesn't have a job. And the reason why he needs a car is to get the job. You see what I mean? It's the real issue.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the money. So if you try to solve the problem of the money, it's the symptom of the disease, and you're not going to solve it.
Right.
You have to eradicate the disease to be able to get somebody motivated.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. That's kind of a weird way to explain it, but hopefully that helps.
Well, what I got out of it is when you're talking to people and negotiating, just get as much information as you can before you open your mouth.
Right.
Don't correct things. Don't change things. Don't no, but you can't do that. No, no, no. Because I try to be logical, and that doesn't always work in this point. You're trying to get to the bottom of something. Just be quiet and listen.
So the purpose of the initial phone call, the closing phone call, and the deal meeting is exactly to extract as much information before you leave in the deal meeting. You're going to give your presentation, and your presentation should have everything in it that they told you that will help them with whatever they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, you must always remember that the only reason they're selling the house is because whatever, like suppose the payments or the debt relief is so much pressure for them that they just want off of it. Or they're looking to get their cash. They're going down to the bank with their little savings account passbook, and they're saying, I want my 20 grand or my 10 grand. And that number is always wrong. 100% always wrong. I've done hundreds of closings, and you couldn't pay me $1 million to calculate how much my profit is at the end of a deal because there's too many moving parts. And it's not off by thousands, but it's off. You know, like I'll give you a classic one. My attorney just all of a sudden, he was charging me $695 to do a closing. All of a sudden, the last closing, there's a fee on there for $150 for paperwork. I'm like, what's that? Oh, that's for Deanna. That's his personal assistant, his legal assistant.
Oh, did you do it for free before this?
Evidently, he claims that number's been on there for a long time. And I went back and looked, it hasn't been. But there's $150 that just showed up. Now, here's the thing. My lawyer's really good to me. I talk to him a lot, and he doesn't charge me. So I just shut up and keep going because he's got to make money. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that he does for me that he's like, could charge me for, and he doesn't. So you just got to know which battles to pick. Okay?
Yep.
So realize that your seller has a motivation to sell the house, and they often think that the money they're getting is going to solve that problem. Now, here's the amazing thing, okay? And we're like really we're really profound right now. I mean, I don't even know if this is podcast material. It may not even be one of the most popular podcasts we're doing, but I'm telling you that I'm doing this because I have coaching clients that are having trouble with this, and I'm going to tell them, come listen to this podcast. Okay? See, now they have that number in their head, and they think that's going to solve their problem. 20 grand. What they haven't done is they haven't gone to the other side of the table to make sure that the buyer can pay for it. Because what they don't realize is there's only 4 places to get money for a house. Okay? And those 4 places are from the bank, which we talked about this in a few episodes ago.
Sure.
From the bank, from hard money, 2, 3 from private money, or 4 from the buyer. Those are the only 4 places you can get money to buy a house.
Yep. So
you need to figure out which, when you go back, and I'm talking about, do they want money now, or are they willing to wait for it? That's the 2 secrets that I keep talking about. Once you figure those out, and when I mean secrets, I mean the seller's keeping those secrets from you. You have to find them out, right? Then once you figure out which one is it A or B or 1 or 2, you then can pick which one of these 4 on how you're going to pay for the house. So if they say they want all their money now, then you would need to go to the bank. You would need to probably go get hard money or private money, right?
Right.
So you're going to have to use, what are your available resources? How are you going to get that money? So when you're negotiating with them, you're thinking with that, right? Like we do apartments, and sometimes when we do apartments, we go get money from banks. You know, you do a big apartment complex. You know, it's $1 million, and you need $300,000 down. So your private lender will lend you the $300,000 for the down payment, and then the $700,000 gets paid for the bank. Right? Those are 2 different types of deals.
Yep.
Right. So You need to know all these things and you need to make decisions, right? And each of these own rules, or each one of these four has their own rules that the seller isn't aware of. But it costs the seller their bottom line. Because if you go to the bank or you go to hard money, like say you go to a hard money lender and it's 3 points and 12%, who do you think's paying for that? The investor's not paying for that. It's going to reflect the offer, and eventually the seller's paying for it. Because the seller has chosen that way to get paid for the property, right?
Yep.
So the seller isn't aware of the impact of that decision of what my problem is, and I'm going to use this to pay for it. You see how it's all tied together? I mean,
sure.
We're like really like, this is like Psych 101 in seller's head, right? But if you understand this, it makes a powerful impact on how you buy houses, because now it allows you to like know which yellow brick road you're going down and how to unwind their necessity level. What do they need and how bad do they need it? You know, like my sister's necessity level her necessity level is price.
Is what?
Price.
Oh, yeah.
She just wants, I know I paid $299 for my house. There's no way I'm taking $299. I'm getting more than that. So that's her necessity level. What does she need? Right? She set that, by the way.
Sure.
As opposed to the guy that we're buying a house for right now, that we bought it at like, I don't even know what the math is. We bought it at like, I think 20 something cents on a dollar. Right?
Yep.
Because he's owned the house for 2 years. His son was supposed to renovate it. He's in jail now. He's just got, and it's just money pouring out of his wallet.
Made the house worse.
Yeah. He killed the house. Right?
You can't give a house to some people, you know.
So the necessity level, that's right. The necessity level for this guy is get it off my plate because it's bleeding me and I got to stop the bleeding. So if you don't know all these things that we're talking about, you won't get to the root of the evil. And if you don't have the root of the evil, you can't stop the bleeding. Right? So, in fact, the seller is not thinking with how you're going to pay for the house.
No, what does he care? He just wants the money.
Right. They only think about what they're going to do with the money once they get it. That's important. It took me years, 10, 12, 14 years. It took me years to realize that, because it's so obvious that you don't think about it.
Well, you're thinking about your side of the story. He's thinking about his side of the story.
Right.
It's like, what's that thing? When I was young, I'd go to a party and wonder what people were thinking about me. When I got older, I didn't care what people were thinking about me. Now that I'm older, I realize they weren't even thinking about me.
Right.
You know, nobody even cared.
Right.
But you don't think about what other people think. You think what you're thinking. You think the seller's thinking about what you're doing. Nah, he's just on his end and you're on your end.
Right.
But what you're talking about is we're not buying a house just so we can have a bunch of money. We have to think what's happening with the other guy. This isn't buying it.
What's the added value you bring? Sometimes it's debt relief. Sometimes it's you're going to buy a house that he can't sell because it needs renovation, and who's going to renovate it? I mean, because your end user doesn't do that. Because, I mean, think about the hoops they got to go through to buy a house that needs renovation. You know, they not only have to come up with down payment money to get the mortgage, but then they got to come up with money to do the renovation. So how many of those are out there walking around?
Yeah, and where are you going to live while you're doing that?
And it goes back to the silent disagreement. So, you know, what happens is a house like that, people look at it and they're like, ew, it needs too much work. I mean, think of it this way. If what I'm telling you is not true, then why have we seen reality TV shows where people go in and look at houses with cameras in there so you can hear what they're saying while there's somebody not in the room? And they're popular TV shows. Okay? Because that is very true. Because what do they say when you're not there?
Yeah.
That's what you want to find out. That's where you want to get to.
You're not saying people are two-faced, are you, Bill?
Oh, yeah, no. Especially not in California or now.
Well,
Wait,
really,
did that come out?
Boom. I didn't hear anything. No, just to be polite, they're just being polite, you know. They don't want to say, even if they're honest people, a really honest person doesn't hurt your feelings.
Right.
A dishonest one doesn't hurt your feelings because they don't have the courage to or the balls. But, you know, just to be polite. But then you find out later.
So not everyone has a type of house that's easy to sell, like my sister's, right? Now they have to consider taking a deep discount or waiting for terms based on what their problem is.
Yep.
Right? So we'll tend to give them more money if they wait, which we already know because we've talked about that for 150 shows, right? But at the other end, we have to get our buyer qualified for a new mortgage, and that's where the money's going to come from. Whether it's a renovation, whether it's a terms deal, a lease option deal, an option deal, doesn't matter. Subject to deal, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the money's coming from the buyer.
Sure, ultimately.
Right? So that's where some of the 5-second qualifiers come in. Right? Like another one is, because I've already given you a couple of them. Another one is when did you plan to move by? Right? It works for buyers too. When were you planning on moving into a new house? Right?
Oh, yeah, sure. When on the lease option.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's a lease option. Even if it's a cash deal, when were you planning on moving in?
Gotcha. I just did that with my condo. When do you want to move in? June? No, I'm renting it now. Forget it.
Right.
When do you want to move in? Like right away. Good.
Right. Okay. So that can measure the motivation of someone, right? So if they're thinking that they get their full asking price and all cash, they'll sound motivated, like you said earlier. Oh, well, I'm ready to go right now. I wanted to do it before the end of the month. And then you talk to them a little bit longer and you find out, because they have their daughter's college tuition is due and they need $25,000, so they're selling the house to pay off the college tuition because they don't want to look bad in front of the kid, and the wife's giving him a hard time, and it's too much mental pressure for him.
Ouch. I'm sorry. I never sell my house for college tuition. I tell them go to state school or something.
I'm just giving an example. I'm just saying that things like these happen.
Sure.
You know? Here's another one. My kid, blah, 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 got in trouble and I need money. Right? I mean, there's so many of them. I'm getting divorced. I got to pay off my ex-wife. The deal I'm doing right now, he needs $45,000 for the ex-wife. And he's got a time frame to do it in.
Oh. A legal time frame?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
See?
Yeah.
So in his head, he wants to just give her money and get rid of her and lick his wounds. 49 years they were married. And
That's
one day he wakes up and says, she wakes up and says, I met my soulmate and I'm leaving. And 2 months later they were divorced. 2 months later, it was over, finalized, court date, over. I didn't even know you could do that in the state of Connecticut because usually they make you wait 90 days. But they did it. Okay?
Yep.
So, too many times my coaching clients will come to me and they'll say, I have a motivated seller. And they didn't do the things we're talking about right now. And I get on, and I used to get on the phone with them and help them with that. You know, I'll do a phone call with them and help them with the motivated seller and trying to make a deal.
Right. Only to find
that they want that they're like asking too much for the property, or they're unrealistic, like we talked about before. They haven't brought the house to the market. They don't know what it's worth. They just have this plan in their head, and they're just trying to get somebody to follow along. And that's all, right? So the other thing is that when you're in the house, which we talked about already, right? One of the 5-second exercises that I use is when I ask them, if I don't buy your house today, what are you going to do? Right?
I've heard you say that one.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing here is that don't underestimate what I'm telling you with these sentences, because they've been tested with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and they all have, and the reason why I use them is because they come out with the same results, whether I use them or whether somebody else uses them. And one of the things that I've noticed is that this one sentence, so if I don't buy your house today, what will you do? Now, I've been in houses, and I think you've been with me, but I've been in houses at times that I'll ask that question, right? And all of a sudden, we went from them being cocky I'm thinking I'm done. I'm like, well, they're not going to do anything, so I'll just ask the question and I'll just get the hell out of here. Now I'm thinking, how quick can I get out of this house?
Mm-hmm. Stop wasting your time.
Right.
But what happens when you ask them, Bill?
And all of a sudden, it changes the whole deal. And all of a sudden, we're back. All of a sudden, like I'll be in a house for 45 minutes, negotiating, doing this, and nothing's happening. It's like completely hard. Maybe an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, I ask that question and I withdraw.
And they turn a little pale?
Yeah. Because now they think that, oh, he's leaving. Shit, I better straighten out.
Mm-hmm.
I better pay attention because he's the only solution I have.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the negotiating starts, and I'll spend another hour in the house. Right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so another thing we need to talk about before we get out of here is their plan. So if we know what the seller's plan is, because I keep talking about they have plan B, right, or plan A. If we know what the seller's plan is, once they sell, then we can match a good offer to their plan. So our plan can help their plan. So when you take the two plans and match them together, you get a deal. Now, it sounds like that's a little simple, but at the end of the day, that's all we're doing. That's the definition of an offer, is their plan and our plan match, so they say yes.
Yeah, but people don't tell you that.
Right.
Just in conversation, a lot of times people don't. How you doing? Good. How are you? Good.
Right.
None of that is true. How you doing? Not so hot. You know, practice talking to people when you have an hour to find out what's really going on. You just how's life, and just see what's really, really happening. You'll get scared.
Right.
Because sometimes things are happening, you know?
Well, what helps
then you
me
can help
is I
someone.
logistically look at things. So it's like if they're telling me that they want to move out in 2 weeks and the house is full of crap, I'll be like, this isn't going to happen. Here I have this 80-year-old man, like we have a 75-year-old man, right? And the house that we're buying. And like, I asked him, what are you going to do with the stuff? Oh, I don't want none of it. Right. But I asked that question because here I have an 80-year-old man or 75-year-old man, and I'm like, what's he going to do? Because logistically, he's not coming here and moving this furniture.
Oh, he could barely. No, he had trouble moving around. He was
right.
He didn't look too well.
Right.
Hell no.
You know, so logistically, you have to look at things. So, you know, if they say they're going to move to California, okay, so who's loading the truck and who's driving it?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you getting the money? It's going to cost you $2,000 to go across country with this truck.
And you'd be shocked people don't figure that part out.
Right.
They think to sell the house and all this money will happen, but they don't have much money in it.
So first you got to get their plan, and then second you have to start qualifying it. So if I did what they're doing, what would happen? And then that makes me curious and inquisitive to ask questions to figure out what's really going on.
So you put yourself in their shoes. Imagine you had the problem. How would you solve it?
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's going an extra mile.
What would I do?
Yeah.
Right. And that makes a big sense. Right. All right. So let me see here. So I wanted to. I guess we're kind of at the end of the show, aren't we?
We're just about at an hour.
We're at an hour. Okay.
58 minutes.
Because I was going to give a couple of examples, but I think we've given a couple of those examples. So here's the deal. A motivated. I've coached a lot of people. You know that. You've seen them. You talk to them. They're in the meetups. And this is my second round. I mean, I did it for 7 or 8 years in early 2000s before you were around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've coached a lot of people. And I'm here to tell you absolutely, positively, every time, 100%, every coaching client, what happens is until they see and hear a motivated seller, they're lost.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So way too many times I like go through agony. Sometimes it's a month. Sometimes it's a week. Sometimes it's a year before they actually see and notice a motivated seller. Now, notice is a big thing because a lot of times they'll see them and don't recognize them.
Really?
Because they don't know all the things we're talking about today. They don't take the time to study it because they are much like the seller we're talking about. They're in their own head thinking about what they're going to do and not thinking about the deal. Right?
Well, everybody gets into this. Let's put it this way. I don't think anybody gets into real estate thinking, I want to go help some people with their problems.
Right.
We think, I want to make some money in real estate.
Right.
Big industry, of course.
Right.
But at some point, you got to cross that field and figure you have to buy houses from people,
Right.
not on unless you do MLS, and you have to talk to them.
So you could do this a couple different ways. So you need to hear and see a motivated seller before your career will change. Because once you hear them, now you know what the ideal scene is. Now you know what to look for. And now you know when you don't have it, you can whack them.
Yeah, otherwise you try to convince people. Because I did that for a while. That's the other things that I do, I can do with anybody. I can teach people anything, blah, blah, blah. But this isn't that way. This is if they're not there. Because you say find a motivated seller. You don't say convince them. It's find.
Right.
I mean, you have to talk to them to find it, but it's there.
The majority of the work is done for you already.
Yeah, in their own head, they put themselves there.
Right.
They're in a certain position where you tap it and you'll find, they're motivated because something's going on already.
Right.
You
That's
don't
a good point.
convince.
I say find. I don't say go make one.
No, it's find a motivated seller. You're finding them. You're not convincing them. You're not making them. Right. You have to ask a few questions and nurture it a teeny bit. But if it isn't already there, good luck trying to convince them. I've never seen it.
Right. So you could go out and you can spend a lot of time talking to people, and you could go try to find one of those, which is possible. You could find one next week if you make enough phone calls and do enough appointments, which I found not to happen. So you could go figure it out and do all that, or if you wanted to, you can actually hear me talking to a motivated seller and hear what it sounds like, so you can get a jump start.
Yeah.
Right. So believe it or not, we made a course called Whack the Suspects, and it's been on our other website, and it hasn't been available. We've actually had it for some time, and Emma did a good job of just pulling a few more courses out of our archives, and she put it on our new website this week. So if you want to learn how to whack a suspect and want to hear an actual live prospect and hear what they sound like, and hear me going in much more detail about how to find them and how to handle them. I talk about some marketing. I talk about how to pre-screen them in the marketing. I talk about how you can do all this stuff so that you can actually find a motivated seller to talk to. It's in this course. So if you're listening to this podcast, the course is normally $67. We're giving it 50% off if you listen to this podcast. What you do is you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/courses, or just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand corner, there's a link that says courses, and you'll see it says Whack the Suspects. Okay. Once you go on that page, there's a sales page there. You click on the link, and when it asks you for the $67, if you put in the coupon box, Whack'em, WHACKEM, Whack'em, WHACKEM. You put that in the coupon box. I'll give you a 33% discount. I'm sorry, a 50% discount, which is a really good deal.
Yeah.
And it's not that long. It's something you can listen to in a couple hours, and it's completely mind-boggling, because once you shift in your head what a prospect sounds like and what a suspect sounds like, it will change your career. Because I can promise you, if you are feeling like you're burned out or real estate doesn't work, you're talking to too many prospects. If you're not, suspects. If you're not making enough money or doing enough deals, it's because you're talking to too many suspects. And if after a while you start isolating what those suspects are saying, you'll probably find out that you're marketing to the wrong people. That's why you're getting those suspects. So it kind of rolls back to that. So this course could be, it's not expensive. It's not some fancy, how to buy a real estate without a loan course. But it's one of those things that you should add to your toolbox. It's not that expensive. Christ, you'll spend as much as this course on lunch. Or dinner. You know what I mean? It's not that expensive. So just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, go to courses, go to Whack the Suspect, put Whack'em, WHACKEM, in the coupon code, and get it off for 50%. With that said, I think I've done my job today. Suspects can be cruel. Over and out.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.